Hello there, welcome to today's podcast. Today's podcast is all about how to nurture yourself as we move into autumn. Excuse me. For those of you who have worked with me before, have been to workshops and things, you'll know that I actually place a lot of importance, a lot of emphasis on the shifting seasons and how it impacts on us, especially as women, but as humans in general. You've got things like seasonal affective disorder where the link is clear, but even where it's not such a stark link, the changing of the seasons does really influence how our bodies function, how we feel on an emotional level, and also spiritually as well, because as you know, mind, body, and soul are all connected. So today's podcast, I'm going to talk through essentially what autumn is, what autumn means to us in terms of our cycles, in terms of a little bit around menopause as well. But I'm going to talk through how we can properly nurture ourselves, because we are somewhat disconnected from these natural cycles in modern day life. We appreciate the changing cycles, but we're not kind of as driven by them or as impacted by them as we used to be in bygone days. So the food that we have in the supermarket is readily available all year round. There's not so much of a pressing urgency in terms of our lives and the seasons. Our life kind of goes unchanged by and large. So I talk a lot about reconnecting with the seasons, and for me, autumn is a perfect time to do this. It is my absolute favourite season. I love autumn. I love the colours. I love the crispness in the air. It is my absolute favourite season. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means in terms of my world, in terms of Chinese medicine, in terms of our emotions, but also how we can harness the power of this natural shift to get us feeling at our best. So a little bit of a divergence first. So I'll talk a little bit around autumn in terms of our menstrual cycle. So again, if you've been to any of my sort of productivity workshops, you'll know that I do talk or put a lot of emphasis on the natural cycle of our menstrual cycle, of our periods, and how we can liken that to the natural cycles. So, for example, if you're talking about the life cycle of a woman, we start off in our springtime. So that's as girls and adolescents, we are becoming fertile. Essentially, we are awakening, we are rising, we are growing our strength, growing our power. We are becoming the fertile, vibrant woman that we will enter into our summer as. So as we go into summer, that's when our maturity, things mature, things blossom, things become fertile. That's our fertile time. Then post-fertile years, that's our autumn. So essentially that's our menopause. So things start to slow down a little bit. We tend to be more relaxed. Or this is our natural way of being. Whether it actually occurs, that's a whole new podcast. In fact, that's probably a whole new podcast series. But the menopause is kind of our autumnal phase, and we can liken that to our menstrual cycle as well. So the autumn of our menstrual cycle is the part of our cycle where we start to withdraw a little bit. So around ovulation, that's our summer. That's when we're at our most vibrant, at our most attractive. And that makes sense in nature. That's when we're ovulating, is when we want to attract a mate. So that's when we're at our most vivacious and at our most vibrant. So that's our summertime. Then post-summer, post-ovulation, we've got our autumn. So that's when, again, we start to maybe want to slow down a bit. We become a bit more introspected. We become a little bit more kind of calm. Again, not necessarily, but that's our natural state. Sometimes we fight it, and again, that's a whole different podcast. But this is our autumnal phase. Now, these phases aren't 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, or a week. That's not how this works. These are just phases. One phase can be a lot longer than another phase. They can change month to month, but essentially that's what's happening. We are going through these seasonal changes exactly the same as our fabulous planet is going through these, I can't say that because the whole planet isn't in autumn, but our little part of the world in the UK here is currently going into autumn. And our bodies mimic this same seasonal transition. For some people, it's a lot harsher than others. Some people barely notice it. But it is it is an interesting thing, actually, a bit of an aside. It is a really interesting thing if you're tracking your cycles and you're tracking your symptoms. It's a really good thing to track, or just to go back and just notice whether this bears out for you, whether you are at your most confident and most vivacious, least anxious points during your summer, so during your ovulation, and whether you have, so our menstruation, our bleed time is our winter, and that's when we want to kind of hibernate a little bit. That's when we're at our most isolated, but not necessarily in a negative way, but that's when we just want to kind of snuggle under a duvet. So do you find that yourself? Exactly the same as our life cycle, menopause being autumn. And exactly the same as we're entering into autumn now. So our little part of this fabulous planet is entering into autumn. And for some women, that can massively affect our well-being. So for me, it makes me feel great. I love the colours. I even like the rainy days. As I'm sitting here, we've moved house this year, and I'm sitting here with big skylights, beautiful, beautiful area. The autumnal light is flooding in, and even on the rainy days when the rain's hitting the skylights, it makes it really hard to record podcasts and meditations. I have to build in a lot of water-based visualization if I'm doing meditations. But it's a lovely space to be. I love autumn. But for some women, it doesn't feel like that. For some women, it can signal the start of winter. The hormonal changes can really be impacted. So this podcast, Getting Down to Business, is all about what autumn represents in terms of emotions, in terms of physical energy, how to cope with autumn if you are somebody who struggles with autumn, the types of food to eat, the types of self-care to pick up in autumn, because it can look very different on season to season. And just different things to consider as we move into winter. There will be a similar podcast to this as we go into winter, with tips and tricks on how to feel fabulous during winter as well. But today we are all about autumn. So autumn, in terms of what we should, and I hesitated there because I don't like the word should, as you know, but it's very much a time of reflection. So if we want to honour the autumnal energy, things that we could be doing for autumn is very much based around the idea of reflection. It's based around the idea of slowing down, of preparing for the colder, way more introspective winter. So as the nights start to draw in, that's when we start to want to sit inside more. We want to starting to think about getting woolly socks out. I love knitwear, but getting that whole hugger, however you pronounce hugger. Sorry to all you Scandinavians out there, but this idea of hugger, this idea of this beautiful comfort, the natural wool, the big log fires, the steaming vats of hot chocolate. That's when we start to look towards these kind of things as we're slowing down and heading to the winter period. Autumn is a time of transition. Well, all seasons are a time of transition, but autumn is that transition from the vibrant, energetic summer to the more introverted, introspective, cool of winter. But obviously it's a beautiful time in its own right as well. In terms of Chinese medicine, it's very much linked to the lungs. So we talk about vitality, about qi, about our energy, quite a lot about the movement of qi around our bodies. It can feel a little bit as if it's getting a little bit stagnant in autumn if our lungs are or if our lung energy, not necessarily our physical lungs, but if our lung energy is depleted, then the energy doesn't move around our bodies enough. So we can start to feel a little bit stale within ourselves in autumn. And I know I've got friends who start to say, who say, sorry, when the summer days start to disappear, they start to feel a little bit lackadaisical. They feel a little bit sluggish. And that's all about the movement of qi. So we'll talk about that. It's also around our large intestines as well. So again, that's around a lot to do with releasing emotions, about not letting go of emotions. You will have heard me talk countless times about how we store a lot of negative emotions within our abdomen. And this large intestine link to autumn is a prime example of that. It's about letting go of anything that has started to fester, that's sitting within us, that we need to just let go of, release. So it's encouraging sort of to clear out stuff that isn't serving us anymore. So we talk a lot about spring cleaning, and there is an absolute role for spring cleaning in spring, but autumn is no different. A little time for reflection and just clearing out what isn't serving you anymore. If you struggle with spring cleaning, then think about autumn cleaning and see if that's going to work better for you. So go out, go through your wardrobes, get rid of clothes that aren't serving you, clear out anything that has lost its positivity for you. Once we clear things out, we can make space for the new growth. So winter isn't necessarily about growth, but it is about nurturing yourself, and it's about taking time and care for yourself. So if you don't have any space in your life for you, autumn is a great time to just create that space. So not necessarily growth in terms of your spring and summer fertility growth, but in terms of your self-care rituals, in terms of your nurturing through winter and your self-growth. It's a great time to be preparing for that. When we talk about lung health, I'm just going to talk a little bit actually about lung health, because this is quite impactful when it comes to things like endometriosis. So in Chinese medicine, we talk about the lungs as being quite susceptible to environmental factors. So I would say probably that the lungs are the most important, that's probably not the right word, but impactful maybe, but the most impactful organs, if you will, in terms of environmental change. So they become impacted by the coldness. So as we move from warm summer, I'm sure some of you had warm summers. It wasn't particularly warm here in the northwest, but I'm sure some of you had glorious summers. But as we move, was there a hint of bitterness in my voice there? But as we move from the warmth of summer to the cool of winter, our lungs can actually be quite drastically affected if we have low energy. Same with dryness. So as things start to dry out, that can impact our lungs. You know, that dry, I was going to say dry heat. I don't necessarily mean dry heat, but dry air that we get with autumn. Air conditioning units have the same impact with me. But anything that's shifting that taking the moisture away can really impact on our lungs, or too much moisture as well if we're going the other way. But also emotional stress massively impacts on our lungs, which has a massive impact on the movement of qi around our bodies. So it's really, really important for our general well-being and vitality that our lung health is good, is particularly good. It's also linked to the skin as well and the immune system. So if you find yourself getting run down in autumn, if you find yourself getting recurring colds or cold sores or whatever your body's whispering is, if you find that happens more and more in autumn, then that could well be a lung energy issue. So I'm going to talk through ways that you can nurture that to try and stop that happening. Also, people can see flares up of dry skin and eczema, that kind of thing, flaring up as well. And that is, again, linked to our lung meridian, our lung energy health in traditional Chinese medicine. But we're going to talk about how we can build all this up. So obviously there's an emotional component as well. I talk a lot about how emotions sit within our bodies, how they are linked to our well-being. When we talk about lung energy, then there's so much going on in terms of emotional links. And when you talk about it as well, so if you think about autumn, like I say, in terms of being linked to our lungs, but also our large intestine in terms of letting go of negativity, negative emotions, you can just start to see how impactful this is. So the emotions that are stored in our lungs tend to be quite negative ones. So we have unresolved grief, unresolved sadness. They are stored within our lungs. So we talk about unresolved and unprocessed grief and how that can disrupt the flow of qi. So when we talk about disrupting the flow of qi, that's very much in terms of, that's when we get the blockages. Now, you've heard me talk about blockages leading to physical symptoms and emotional symptoms. When we're talking about unprocessed grief, that can lead to feelings of heaviness in the chest. You know, if you get those sort of feelings of somebody pressing on your chest or you're struggling to breathe, that can lead to that shallow breathing, or also emotional. So we talk about sort of that sense of sadness, that sense of loss, just deepening and deepening. And that is massively important actually when it comes to lung health in inverted commas. So that sense of sadness, loss and longing kind of sit there within the lungs. Detachment as well. So we talked a little bit in the last episode around being detached from your emotions and being a sense of resilience. Well, actually that also comes with your lung health as well. So if you are feeling detached from emotions, if you're feeling numb, like you're not reacting as you normally would. That can be your body's way of protecting itself. So when we talk about a poor level of resilience, that's one of the reasons that we do sort of go into emotional shutdown. It's to protect ourselves from further grief. And also when we talk about a lung link, the lungs are actually where we store that fear of letting go. So you can see at some point if your body is wanting to let go of certain feelings, of certain emotions, the lungs harbour this intense fear of letting go. So you kind of, at autumn, you're kind of almost fighting yourself. You're wanting to let things go, but there's a resilience there, and that resistance, and that resistance is coming from your lung activity, your lung energy. So it might be more difficult for you to let things go in the autumn than the spring. And maybe that's why we talk about spring cleaning rather than autumn cleaning, because autumn brings with it a resilience to let things go. But actually, because of that, it might be way more of a cathartic exercise to do. So I hope that sort of sheds a little bit more light in terms of lung health. I'm very aware that I didn't want to go into too much detail because, again, you could do whole podcasts just on that one thing, but hopefully that gives a little overview in terms of sort of the relationship with lung health and with autumn. So in terms of when we're linking this to endometriosis and our symptoms, then we can see how, generally speaking, we can just start to, the resilience can be impacted. We can just start to experience that negativity a little bit more heightened as we move into the autumn phase. So again, the colder, drier air is dreadful for our inflammation. So if you do get inflammation as part of your endometriosis, then that combined with the pain might get a little bit worse as we move through autumn and into winter. It's the same with arthritis and other chronic conditions. We do see symptoms get worse as the colder weather moves in. Your body may feel more sluggish if you struggle with fatigue, if you struggle with energy drops, then that might be heightened as we move through autumn. Again, as well, if you're struggling with menopause, natural menopause, but enforced menopause, if you've had a hysterectomy recently, or if you are on the implants or the injections to bring about an unnatural menopause, then you may feel your symptoms start to exacerbate a little bit as we move into this colder weather. Exactly the same principle as endometriosis. The change in temperature may exacerbate, or possibly will exacerbate, things like your inflammation and your pain. On the plus side, if hot flushes are a symptom of your menopause or a symptom of your endo, then that might get a little bit better. But you might feel that you're sort of seeing increased levels of fatigue or joint, sort of heavy joint, that heavy leg kind of thing, that might get a little bit worse. And again, emotionally speaking, you might feel a little bit more vulnerable. Feeling vulnerable is very much linked to all of the emotions that you get with autumn. When we talk specifically as well about Chinese medicine, about that fear of letting go, but you're kind of wanting to let go as well in autumn. So that can leave you feeling really discombobulated, really vulnerable. So if you are struggling with that, again, just be really gentle with yourself. Just let things go slowly. I know that sounds really weird. When we talked last time about resilience, about sort of putting in a stage by stage process, think about doing the same with letting things go. If there's something that's not serving, if you're holding on to a feeling or a resentment or an anger, and you want to let it go, but your lungs are kind of fighting against you letting it go. They're feeling vulnerable. They've got this fear of letting go. Then just break it down step by step. And by that, I mean, look at why you want to let it go. How will your life feel without that lingering sense of anger or without that lingering sense of resentment? And what can you do? Can you write a letter? You don't have to send a letter, but can you write a letter? Can you forgive? Just start to break it down into manageable steps. Take control of what you can take control over, and bring it down to a level that you're comfortable with, that you're happy with. Don't ignore it. I'm laughing because I've just recorded the previous episode where I talked about ignoring things. Don't ignore it. Don't put your head in the sand. Acknowledge it and take steps to do it. Excuse me. And also acknowledge any emotions that come up for you. So as you're working through autumn, as you're doing all of the things that I'm going to suggest that you do in terms of nurture yourself, you may well bring up emotions naturally, because the more you nurture yourself, the safer you'll feel. The more you nurture yourself, the more your resilience will grow. And the more your resilience grows, the more safe you feel, the more likely you are to be able to release things that have been stored up within you as well. If those emotional shifts happen, if those emotional releases happen, then go with it. Be grateful for it and acknowledge it for exactly what it is. It's all part of the healing process. Essentially, what you're doing as you're nurturing your body in line with the seasons, you're essentially giving your body a better place, a better space, and that permission to heal itself. And with that comes beautiful things, but that can be a little bit painful at the time. So just go with it. Just journal. If you want to come to my health clinics to talk about anything you're experiencing, you're very more than welcome. But again, don't ignore it, acknowledge it, celebrate it, do whatever you need to do to get to a place where you're happy with what's going on. So how can you align your self-care with autumn? So as we say, autumn is very much about rest and reflection. So honour your mind, your body and your soul, honour their need to slow down during autumn. So don't go at life as hell-bent as you would do during summer. Embrace periods of rest. Take time out for reflection. Take time out to build that resilience, to recharge before winter, before the colder months set in. So when we talk about exercise, autumn is a great time to start to do some more gentle movement. So things like Tai Chi and Qigong, they're really, really good. They're really good all the year round, but certainly when we're shifting through autumn into winter, just gentle movements like Qigong and Tai Chi are really, really nice ways of keeping that movement going, keeping that blood and that Qi flowing around our bodies, but not overexerting ourselves. Going for walks. So if you're normally a runner, try and walk a little bit more, sort of substitute 1 or 2 of your runs a week for a nice autumnal mindful walk. If you're worried about dips in your fitness, then walk for longer than you would be running for. But just take a little bit of time to use that outside time to calm it down, to slow it down a little bit. Increase the meditation and the breath work that you're doing. So this is massively important, not just in terms of calming things down and relaxing and reflecting, but also in terms of that all-important lung health. The more breath work you do in autumn, the stronger your lung energy will be. And the stronger your lung energy will be, the heartier, if that's the word, the heartier your resistance to... so basically, the more you'll build up your immune system, the stronger your Qi will be around your body. So you won't be as susceptible to cold, to flu, to any germs that are going around. You'll be able to think clearer, you'll be able to sleep better, it will reduce stress, it will give you a lot more resilience. And it sounds daft, but breathing is so important in all of that. So practice breath work. Even if you don't do it during summer, autumn is a great time to try and build that into your well-being ritual. Increase your journaling. So autumn's a great time for journaling. I love getting a new autumnal book. So get a journaling book or a notepad that lifts your spirits. If you like autumn, then autumnal colours, get a new pen. If you like spring and summer, then get a journal that sort of invokes that feeling of spring and summer, so you can be doing an autumnal activity whilst being reminded of that summertime. But autumn's great for reflecting. So autumn is great for journaling in terms of what has happened and how you can learn from it. So I talk a lot about reflecting on your day, writing down 3 things that made you smile, just reflecting on all the positive things that have happened. And autumn is really, really great for that. You can start to reflect on your year. We're going to do a little bit of podcasting, and there's going to be a workshop coming up that will look on reflecting on 2024. And autumn is a really, really good place to start, because you can let go of all the negativity. You can start to really focus on the positive things that have happened this year and start to build up so that you're ending 2024 on a real high. It's a great time in terms of letting go of emotional baggage as well. So saying goodbye to things that aren't serving you. Winter can be harsh. It can be a really difficult and stark time to make big changes. But quite often the changes that people do make do happen in winter, but the seed is sown in autumn as people sit down and reflect, when they start to close the curtains on a night and look into the fire, and they kind of start to realise what isn't serving them anymore. So honour that process. If that's something that you're drawn to do, then listen to that and honour that process. Excuse me. So go for more walks, enjoy the crisp air. Going out at night on an autumn is really, really nice. That sort of more crispness in the air. the leaves on the pavements. It's a really nice time to get outside, and it's really good in terms of an emotional reset, in terms of grounding. Walking can be really beneficial. So take time as well, do it in a mindful way. Take time to notice the different colours of the leaves on the trees. Take time to notice the fact that the sun isn't rising as high into the sky, or that, I don't know, the sound of the leaves hitting the ground. All of those things that you notice on a walk, just take notice. And embrace more hygge activities, more cozy activities. So things like reading, do crafts if that's your thing. Candlelit relaxation. I used to have a lot. I still have a lot of candles. I don't tend to light them anymore, to my eternal dismay, and probably to the dismay of a lot of you guys. I have these lovely battery operated LED candles, and that's partly because when I started the women's circles at the beginning of this year, the space that I was using, I wasn't allowed naked flames, so I wasn't allowed to take candles. So I bought these LED candles thinking they were going to be dreadful. And actually, I find them just as relaxing as a normal candle, but without the implications if I fall asleep whilst it's on. So more often than not, I'll pop these LED candles on, and they're quite cheap. Other places are available, but I just got mine on Amazon. I think they're about 12 quid for 3. Battery life's brilliant. I've been using them since January and they're still going strong. I'm not plugging. I don't get any compensation for saying that. But yeah, if candles, if flames are your thing and you can't be bothered with the actual reality of naked flames, then they're really nice as well. And literally just sitting and watching a flame, even an LED candle one. So the candles I've got, they kind of, I don't know how it works. It's not magic, but there's a little kind of pretend flame on the top. So there's a little light in the top, and there's a little pretend flame that's just a little bit of plastic that wobbles backwards and forwards. It sounds dreadful, but it's really, really relaxing. And I find that just as relaxing as looking into a normal flame. So literally just do some breath work, watch the candle flame, and just see how that relaxes you. Just see how that is perfect in terms of bringing you back to the here and now. If you have a garden, just get out in your garden, do a last little bit of tidying up in the garden before winter sets in. So if you have anything to harvest your, I don't know, whatever it is that you'd be harvesting. We don't have anything to harvest in our garden, but go out and prepare your garden for winter. This kind of mirrors that kind of letting go, that kind of preparing for the more reflective winter. But you're clearing out sort of leaves, you're clearing out all the dead wood that's appearing as we just get ready for winter. And again, if it is a lovely, beautiful day outside, just do your breathing outside, because there's nothing that enhances breath work more than some beautiful, crisp autumnal air. So there's some really nice well-being things to put into your daily rituals that align beautifully with autumn. Now, when it comes to diet's massively important. So you will have heard me talk a lot about eating seasonally, and autumn, for me anyway, it's a very personal thing, but autumn for me is when my favourite foods become seasonal. So I get really excited when I start to lean into the seasonal eating in terms of autumn. So when we're talking about eating seasonally, it's exactly what you think it is. It's starting to eat the warm, nourishing foods again. So your things like your root vegetables, so things like sweet potatoes, parsnips, carrots, all of those kind of root vegetables that are nourishing. They will support our digestion as we move through autumn into the cooler months. They'll give us that nurturing energy that our kidneys need, and it'll keep us alert. Cooked food sounds, I don't know if that sounds daft or sounds simple or quite what, but ignore things like salad, ignore things like tomatoes, unless you're cooking them, cucumbers. These are foods that are designed to be eaten in summer, so they have a cooling effect on the body. What we want to be doing is eating foods that are going to warm us. So foods that are cooked thoroughly through, things that are warm, that are easy to digest. So things like stews, soups, full of nourishing root vegetables, all that kind of stuff. Fruits, so we've got things like apples and pears. They are especially beneficial if you sort of stew them slightly. So if you eat them warm, they become more digestible. So in summer, we'd say eat them raw. They're easier to digest with the summer energy, but with the autumnal energy, then sort of slightly stewed apples, figs as well. They're perfect as you move into this autumnal energy and breaking this autumnal energy. Mushrooms, they're really good for us as well. Things that provide nourishment, that provide moisture for our lungs, so that our lung energy isn't drying out, so that our lungs aren't drying out. So when it comes to things like spices as well, again, it's kind of things that I associate in my mind with autumn, sort of just in terms of colour. So things like turmeric and ginger and cumin, those beautiful orange colour spices, sorry, they're really, really beneficial for this autumnal energy. They support our digestive system. So if our stomachs are struggling with the autumnal phase, if our digestive system is struggling with letting things go, then these spices can really help with that digestion. They help circulation and they help keep us warm as well. So there are kind of witchy elements to this, but most of it is just grounded in pure practicality as well. So that's kind of how to survive autumn, how to nourish yourself in autumn. So self-reflection uses quieter reflection energy to reevaluate your goals, your relationships, your emotional health. Just sit back, prepare for winter in terms of give yourself that space for that emotional growth that will come within winter. Winter is a huge time for recalibration, so the more you can prepare for that in April. In April? What am I talking about? In August? No, in autumn. The more you can prepare in autumn, the easier that winter recalibration will be. Emotional clearing, let go of any baggage that you're still holding on to. Look at unhelpful habits and old unhelpful thought patterns. Start to look at reintroducing or upping the amount of journaling, meditation that you're doing. Release conversations so that you're getting rid of frustration, getting rid of pent-up emotions. All of that kind of stuff is fabulous to do in autumn. And slow down with intention. Just don't fight the natural slowing down of your energy. Embrace it, focus on inner work. It could be self-care, it could be your spiritual growth, but just go with that kind of wanting to sit under duvets more, wanting to get your woolly socks on. And try and avoid overworking. Autumn is all about rest. It's all about slowing down. So don't push yourself too hard. Don't try and maintain the momentum, maintain the energy you had in summer if you don't naturally have it in autumn. Don't suppress emotions. So if you are feeling grief, if you are feeling sadness, then get it out of your system. Don't suppress it. Like I say, avoid cold food, avoid raw food, cook whatever you can. Make sure you're eating hearty, root veg, warm food, warming food, and make sure you're getting plenty of sleep, because autumn is a season of transition. It encourages us to reflect and release and nurture everything about ourselves. So adjust your self-care rituals and do embrace this slower, more introspective energy. Prepare yourself for the colder months coming ahead, and you will find that your resilience, your energy, and your symptoms are more aligned and less in conflict with the natural space around you, and that will make you feel altogether better in yourself. I hope this helps. Until next time, take care.